week 13 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few kickers I have as sleepers this week. The first guy, Greg Zuerlein of the New York Jets. So the Jets here on paper, pretty much in every metric, they line up as a good sleeper option. And this Viking defense, we just know, isn't that great here, where they give up a lot of fantasy points to a lot of multiple positions. And a lot of these Jet players are available widely in about 70-80% of leagues. So right now, Zuerlein available in 85% of fantasy leagues, and he's definitely resurrected his career this season with the New York Jets. After the last few seasons, he's been a mediocre to poor kicker for the Dallas Cowboys. So the last few weeks here for Greg the Leg: Week 9 versus Buffalo 10, Week 11 at the Patriots 4, and Week 12 versus the Bears 9. So this week here, the Jets are going to have to put points on the board to stay apace here with this Minnesota Viking high-powered offense. And right now, they give up the fourth most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So I think Greg the Leg, he could be good for 7 to 10 fantasy points. And he's a sleeper this week. The next guy, Jason Sanders of the Miami Dolphins. So Jason Sanders, he's on one of the most high-powered offenses in all pro football here. And last week, he had a monster fantasy game with 13 fantasy points. But right now, not many owners went out there and got him. Still available in 83% of fantasy leagues. At the last few weeks here for Sanders, Week 9 is Chicago 5, Week 10 versus Cleveland 5, and Week 12 versus Houston 13. So right here, Week 13, this is a ball game in San Francisco where we know this defense is stout over there for the 49er team. I don't think the Dolphins are just going to find the end zone each and every red zone drive. I think they're going to have to settle for some field goals. And Jason Sanders, he's been a pretty accurate kicker throughout his career. So this week here at San Francisco, I think he could carve out a decent fantasy day if you need a kicker in deeper leagues. This week, in the third and final kicker I have as a sleep is Riley Patterson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Jaguar offense, they've been picking it up over the last few weeks here. After the first 3-4 weeks of the season, they got hot, and then they fell off from week 6 to week 10 about. But Riley Patterson right now and this team, they're starting to put points on the board, starting to get them opportunities. And this week here, pretty good matchup at the Detroit Lions that give up a lot of points, and teams live in the red zone every Sunday, it seems like, at this Lion team. So Week 9 versus Vegas, 11. Week 10 versus Kansas City, 5. And Week 12 versus the Baltimore Ravens in a thriller, 8 fantasy points. So this week here at Detroit, I think we'll get a few opportunities and a few extra points as well, because like I said, this Lion team don't stop anybody. And I think Patterson is a decent sleeper this week, available in 98% of fantasy leagues. That's a few kickers I have as sleepers for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.